Good day, traders. I'm Happyboy FX. This is another video in continuation to the previous one I posted. I meant the beginner class 1 video. If you haven't seen that, I advise you watch that video as a beginner. And also, this will be the beginner class 2 video. Okay, so on the previous video I posted, I discussed on how market moves in trends, uptrend, downtrend, and then ranging market accumulation, things like that. So in this video, I'll be teaching you guys on how to spot all these things you need to know on the chart. So firstly, I'll be starting with an order block, how to spot an order block on the chart. So let me start with what is an order block. So as you can see my chart right now, an order block is a zone where large orders are placed by institutional traders, and we retail traders use this zone as a high probability setup for our trades. So an order block, this is it. So we have types of order block. We have a bullish order block, and then we have a bearish order block. And then here is an example of a bullish order block as well. So it says bullish order block is the last bearish candlestick that forms before a bullish candlestick. So here is an example of a bullish order block, which is this right here. The last bearish candle that forms before a bullish candlestick, which is that right there. So then let me show you guys an example of a bearish order block, which is right here. The bearish order block is the last bullish candlestick that forms before a bearish candlestick, which is this right here. The last bullish candlesticks that form before a bearish candlestick, which is it right here. So now I'll talk about breaker blocks, because we have, like I said, we have types of order blocks. This is a breaker block. A breaker block is a filled order block. That is an order block that is expected to push price to the upside or the downside, but failed in doing so. And this failed order block becomes a breaker block, which is this. This order block right here is expected to push price to the downside, but failingly for it to do so, price breaks above, and then it becomes a what? A breaker block. Once price breaks above this, then it becomes a breaker block. This is a break of structure right here. That is a break of structure. Price breaks above this structure right there, and then this body, you mark out your breaker block from the body, not from the wick. You mark out your breaker block from the body of the failed order block. Either it's bearish or bullish. You mark out from the body. So that is a breaker block. And then an example of a bullish breaker block is also this right here. This is a bullish breaker block. A bullish breaker block is an order block that is expected to push price to the downside, but failed at allowing price to break to the upside, which is what I just did here. So let me give this a break of structure, a BOS there. So that's a break of structure, and that's the breaker block right there, the bullish breaker block right there. So let me show you guys an example of a bearish breaker block. I'll show you guys an example of a bearish breaker block. I have an example right here. This is an example of a bearish breaker block. This is an order block as well. The last this is another block as well, like I said. So a bearish breaker block is an order block that is expected to push price to the upside that failed and allowing price to break to the downside, vice versa. Both breaker block and both bullish breaker blocks and bearish breaker blocks are vice versa. So this is it right here. Price breaks structure to the downside, right from here, breaks structure to the downside, from here. Okay, so then break structure to the downside here, which is a break of structure. And then you mark out your breaker block from the body, not from the wick, like I said earlier. From the body, you mark it out. That is your breaker block, your bearish breaker block right there. So then I'll talk about inducement and liquidity. So this is an example of an inducement. An inducement is the first pullback made after a break of structure, which is this. This inducement is a strategic move that often forces price movements engineered to trap impatient or uniform traders into entering the market too early. Let me give you guys an illustrations of an inducement. When you have something like this, a higher high, let me take this out. When you have price giving you a higher high and a lower high and a higher high, and then this one came back, the pullback price gave after this break of structure right here, this pullback right here is your inducement, and then break structure to the upside. So this is your break of structure. Like I said, I won't rush you guys in learning. I'll take things slowly. This is your break of structure right there. And then this is your pullback right here. Must be an incomplete pullback right there, which is your inducement. Right there. That's your inducement. But make sure your inducement, that's your inducement right there. So before I go into details of every other thing, so that's how you spot your inducement, which I did right here. Let's give me a market structure shift there, and then I spot my inducements, my order block right up there. So let me show you guys an example of liquidity. This is liquidity right here. A single pullback. There's a single pullback market made after a break of structure. This is a break of structure right here. There's a break of structure right there. And then the first single pullback market made after a break of structure is this right here. You mark that out as your liquidity. And then, like I said earlier on, when you have a break of structure, that means there's an order block there that market breaks above, which is this order block, this failed order block right here. That now turns to become a breaker block right here. So you mark that out as your what? As your breaker block. You mark that out as your breaker block right there. That's a bullish breaker block. So that is that on this video. I think I'll talk about fair value gaps as well on this video. This is a fair value gap as well. A fair value gaps are market imbalance formed when price jumps up or shoots down rapidly. It's an imbalance in the market. It's a gap created. I can just shift this. I can shift this if possible. Yeah. Then I can do that again for you guys to see. This one, this week right here, you mark it out, and then this week right here, you mark it out. So this middle gap right here is your fair value gap. That's your imbalance right there. That's a fair value gap for you guys. So that's an example of a fair value gap. So I hope with this video you can now be able to spot these things easily. And then we have other types of liquidity as well. We have a trend line liquidity, which is this matching of eyes, equal eyes together, which is what I did here. And then we also have trend lines like this. This is also a trend line liquidity as well. You mark them out. You mark out all these zones that are on a line, on a trend line as well. I'll talk about trend line liquidity more on the next video. I don't want this video to be too long, so that's why I'm trying to short things for you guys, so you can just come back to this video and watch all over again.